Now today's pen and wash tutorial for you is how to draw and paint a squirrel in a hole in a tree. As simple as that. I'll show you the process all the way through, of course, and give you plenty of tips and tricks along the way as well. So let's get them pens working and also those brushes wet. Let's get started. First thing you need to do is obviously get the outline drawing onto the paper. So use whatever method you would normally use to do that, be it by hand, using a trace down method, or the grid system, whichever one you prefer to use. You can see that within this photograph, which is by a photographer called Marlene Koslowski. Thank you, Marlene, for allowing me to use your reference photograph today. That it looks like it's within a sort of a box hole, doesn't it? Like a pre-made squirrel box. I don't know, something like that. That's what it looks like, doesn't it? And you can see also the box is painted. Now I really want this to look like it's in a tree. So I'm trying to create more of a tree hole, really, more than anything. Just with a few basic guide marks using my mechanical pencil here. The size of the nib, by the way, is 0.5. The size I tend to prefer to use. Nice and fine. And it's a 2H lead, so it's also quite pale as well. Waterproof pens, and it has to be a waterproof pen, because when we add the watercolours over the top later on, I don't want that pen to move at all. I don't want it blurring. So make sure you use a waterproof pen. Got a couple of different ones here, as you can see. The blue one is by Pilot, and that's a drawing pen. And the top one is by a company called Sakura, and that's a Pigment Micron, the size 01. And the blue one's also 01 as well, by the way. I'm going to be using the blue one today. I might switch to that one later on, we don't know yet. I'll see what I need. Nice fine tip, as you can see. All I want to do is start to create some basic shapes around the hole, around there. And think about a sort of a round edge towards it, and the way the hole sort of goes inwards. Got the edge of the hole. We don't have to have an edge. In fact, see what I might do, I might blur this edge out so it gradually gets darker as it disappears into that hole. So basic shapes, curve it around, and also use jagged, wiggly lines as well. Because wood is not even, is it? So get a few reference marks in to begin with. Gonna bring it down to there, look. Right past that line. We'll erase all of the pencil off afterwards. Not before, of course. Yeah, you've got to think about the way that these lines curve as well. Even though it curves inwards, some of these lines are horizontal, some are diagonal. It all varies, doesn't it, within there? But the majority of them are heading more towards, what would you say on the clock face? Maybe 5 o'clock. Yeah, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock sort of direction around this side. When you work around the other side, think again about that clock face I just mentioned. Picture it in your mind. And think about the direction or the time those lines are going towards. See what I mean? And work your way around doing that. So plenty of little marks here and there. Vary the direction, vary the curves, and take your time. There's no rush. Now these calendars are supplied by a company called Paul Rubens. They asked me to try them out for them, so I thought I'd give it a try. But the problem is, because I've done a couple for January and February and so on, I then thought, well, I might as well challenge myself to draw a picture on each one of them for the rest of the year. And that is a challenge and a half, it really is. So every month I'm doing a pen and wash painting for you to watch, and also to have a go at as well. And each one will be a different subject. Check the link down below, or the one in the top right hand corner popped there for you now. That's just to one of them, but the link down below will be for the playlist which we've put together for all of the pen and wash drawings. Enjoy. Have fun with them. There's no rush. Now this side, you can't see anything going inside it, can you? I started drawing some lines and I realised, not like this side because of the angle of the camera, but you can see this inside of the hole, like that. That goes to the basic tree around here then, doesn't it? So that's curving around all the time. We haven't got any contrast in there yet, but we'll put some in later on. However, the right hand side, it just comes to a stop, doesn't it? So what I want to do with that, put a few little gaps here and there, a few kind of breaks within that wood. Don't make them all too even, don't want all these looking the same. Some will be wider, some will be shorter, and some will be thicker. Just vary them, that's all you need to do. That's all I'm doing here. Now we know there's a variety of different types of bark. I'm just making this up on the spot. I've not planned it or anything like that. Just having a play really more than anything. I suggest you do the same as well. I'm also going to put some darker lines in as well, just to vary the depth of tone within this bark, and the way it gradually disappears into that hole. And the way we'll make the left hand side curve over even more so is by adding a bit of shading in there as well. But we'll do that in a bit. Let's just get all these marks on first of all. Make them up as you go along. Just think about the direction and also the jaggedness of those lines. If you prefer to use a wider tip on your pen, then do so. Whatever's easier for you, really. I'm going to switch to my Squirrel pen instead, the Pigment Micron. It's the same size nib, believe it or not, but yet it's actually a little bit darker, as you can see here, look. Okay, let's thicken this down a little bit more now. Play with this outline. Think about the cracks and the gaps in between. Then when it reaches the top part of the hole, the edge of the hole there, it suddenly goes that way. Branches off at a different angle. The same here, look. So all the way up to the top like that, and then branches off at a different angle. That's how I'm trying to look at this at the moment. It's to work out where things go more than anything. Trying to create that sort of an edge feel without it being too sharp. So if you do have a selection of waterproof pens, play with the different thickness nibs that you've got. And you'll be surprised what you can do with them, really. You do need some darker areas in there, some lighter areas as well, some thicker lines such as the ones I'm putting in at the moment. So vary them. Don't make it all the same. Play with those textures and have fun with it as well. Well, that should do, because all we need to do now is darken the inside. But I want to make sure that I've got some very fine lines marked out on the top of the head for that squirrel first. You'll see why when we start to blank in that hole. Okay, back to my other pen, and all I'm going to do, see how much finer this one is. I think it's because it's getting a bit old as well, a bit like me really. I'm going to flick up a few little lines first of all, because what we need to really do, if we can, if we can't, don't worry, I've got a different method, is to reserve some of the fine white hairs or lighter coloured hairs that we can see on that squirrel. If we can't, it's not a problem. We don't have problems, do we? We just simply have challenges. So flick up a few little lines here and there. As you flick up your line, that line tapers as you pull away. And also look at the direction these are heading in as well. Once again, think of that clock face like I mentioned before. So roughly what time are those lines going towards? Very likely just working around the outside edge to begin with. And where it is a bit furry, add some fine lines in for that as well. Jagger those lines at the same time. Don't make it too even. The only part that's really curved is probably the top of the nose. The rest of it is quite spiky, but using very tiny spikes indeed. I do the same on the inside, but very lightly, just to begin with. If you angle your pen down to more of an angle, instead of your pen being like that, just turn it down a little bit more, so you're catching more of the edge of the pen rather than the top of it. And by doing so, you'll be able to graze a lighter line. You wouldn't think you can get lighter lines with the same nib size. It's all to do with the pressure you use and the angle you hold that pen at. It all makes a difference. So put your reference marks in, just going over the top of the pencil marks I've already got on there. And then we'll fill that background in and then start working on the squirrel. Okay, let's go for the pilot pen. That's the one with a finer tip, even though it's a size 01, the same as this one here. Different make as I mentioned. What I want to do is pull a few more lines down towards the top of the head. Many of these will get blended in when we fill the background in. So build them up gradually, don't fill them in. As I mentioned earlier on, if you do fill them in, don't worry. We have ways and means around it. We do. I'm going to gradually start to increase the lines higher up in that sort of an angle like that towards say 2 o'clock direction. Don't bring it down too low. And a few around there as well. Don't forget the front of the face. Working my way around. Now we've got some whiskers, but we'll put them on last, I think. How do we do that? We'll have to wait till later on to find out. Our main aim now is to fill in the hole. I'm just trying to be very careful to begin with before I change my pen to a thicker nib. Think about the curve at the top of the head as well. I'm going to darken around the edge of the squirrel, just a small amount to begin with, and then we'll fill this area in shortly. One thing I nearly forgot about, which I need to do before we fill the hole in, and that's to cross hatch across this area here to make it slightly darker to begin with. So lighter towards the left hand side and gets darker as it tips over the edge down into the depths. Wherever that goes, nobody knows. So cross hatching, all that is, where's my scrap watercolour paper? Something like this will do that. All I'm doing is this here like that, look. Like so. You don't have to be too precise with it either. And then we can go over the top of that again, the other way. And that's cross hatching. And for those even darker places, what we can do, we'll go the other way, like that. Then it gets darker and darker and darker. I'll leave that bit there, look. And the more you go over it at different angles, the darker the area is going to get. As you can see here, look at that. If I put a little bit more weight on the pen, but not much, I'm just using the weight of the pen all the time here, and I've done that throughout the drawing. So slightly more weight on the pen, but not much. I don't want to damage that tip. Then you can darken that even further. And look how that's getting from more or less light. If I just put a few more on here, look, and angle the pen down a little bit. So instead of like that, I'm going to bring it down like that. Just grazing the edge of the nib, and you can get it even lighter and lighter. So basically the idea will be, is either the lighter side around the top there, then gradually getting darker, like that, and even darker, like that, as it enters the hole. Got the idea? Let's do it. So I'm going to start from the inside of the hole first of all, cross hatching, go one way to begin with, then cross it over the other way, just like I'm doing here. And already, that's starting to create more of a curved feel, isn't it? As I mentioned, you don't need to be too precise with it, you really don't. And do this all the way around the inside edge to begin with. And it's going to get lighter as it comes over the top. Okay, I'm going to darken this down even further in a minute, but lower down this time. That's the mid-tone, that's the lightest tone. And here, we'll be getting really dark. And here, will be pitch black. When you buy your waterproof pens, you don't have to spend a fortune on them, you really don't. Obviously, the more you spend on the pens, the better quality you'll get. But just remember, they have to be waterproof. If they're not, then you won't be able to put the watercolour paint over the top. Now, if you haven't got a waterproof pen, one way you can get around this is by doing your pencil drawing, then go straight in with a watercolour. And once that's completely bone dry, then you can go over the top with the pen. At least there's no fear of that pen blurring or smudging as you add the paint over the top. So there's an option for you. So you can always give this one a try and see how you get on. So just simply reverse the process. Okay, let's put that one down. I'm going to go to my largest size pen, and this is a size 12 for these Squirrel pigment microns. You can see it's a massive nib on that one, isn't it? It really is. We'll start to fill in the background now, very carefully. If this doesn't fill it in and there's too many gaps involved, we can always go over the top of that with some paint later on. And you can see straight away, that's much darker, isn't it? It really is. This is why you want to make sure that your watercolour paper is of a reasonable quality so you can take the ink. And even though this is one of the lower cost products, should I say, it's actually performing quite well. So fill it in using squiggle motions, little circles like that, that's all I'm doing that. And when you get towards the edge, you can write your name in there as well if you wanted to. When you get towards the edge, I'm going to gradually ease off that by stippling, in other words tapping like that, higher up. Just on the edge where the hole disappears into that vast area. And work your way around doing that same thing, okay? Take your time, there's no rush. You do have to be careful when you get closer to that squirrel, because the thing with pen is that once you put it on the paper, you can't take it off again. You can't, not at all. So, the closer you get to that squirrel, the more care you need to take. Even change your pen as well if you need to. Use a finer tip instead of this wide one. I'll pop a link down below for you for all the materials I tend to use in my pen and wash paintings, as well as the equipment I tend to use in my watercolour paintings. You don't have to buy from there, but it will give you some general idea on what to buy. So well worth a look. All my links are affiliated, but don't worry, it won't cost you an extra penny. Let's work on the squirrel next. Let's go back to my finer tip pen. Just tidy up the top of the head first of all. And then I'm going to start working on the eye. I always like to work on the eye first, whether it's a pen and wash painting or a full-blown watercolour. Let's get some life on the paper first if I can. Look very carefully at that reference photograph. Reinforce those marks so you can see. It's got a white area just down here. Just in the corner. And there's this pinky one all the way over the top there. And that's quite dark coming down to here, so I can afford to go with a dark line. Got to be very careful with this. There's also a very fine line, like a light reflection, just on the inside of the eye, around there. We can fine tune that as we start filling this in. Now the highlight down this side is very light, isn't it? So I'm going to graze that. Just a light graze of the pen. Then bring down the top dark area just to here. Then we can fill everything else in, just about. So you can use the same pen or switch to a different pen if you want to. All depends how much control you want to have. If you're like me, let's have plenty of control over those pens. It comes down to there, then that branches off to there. Look at the angles and the curves you can see within the eye. If you are enjoying this video, do me one huge favour please, and that's by clicking on the subscribe button down below and also that like button. Doing both things can go a long way for my YouTube channel, it really can. Okay, we're going to graze down the bottom of the eye. Remember to angle that pen down. Just catching the very tip of the pen, barely touching the paper. And only using the weight of the pen as well. Just to put a light shade really for this lower part of the eyelid. A few tiny little dots here and there as well. And that's the eye for the pen work anyway, just about done. And it was quick as that. Now work your way around the eye, initially using the side of the pen, just so you can get the feel of it first of all. And then you can start adding the detailing over the top. For example, this area here, because of very fine lines, I'm barely touching the paper here as you can see. Heading more towards, well, 2 o'clock, 8 o'clock direction. As you work your way around the head, you'll notice that the fur directions do vary. They do change, it's not all the same direction. Especially around the nose and the muzzle. That will change it around there, doesn't it? So bear that in mind when you're working in those areas. So consider the length of the lines, the thickness of the lines, and also how light are those lines. If you need those lines to be lighter, lower that pen down that little bit more, just so you're catching the very edge of the tip of that pen. Think about shape all the time as well, otherwise the fur will look very flat. So look for those darker areas, or slightly darker areas. If it's a little bit darker in one area, add a few more lines closer together. And by doing so, you can then create more of a graduated feel to those light and dark areas. That's all I'm doing here. Whilst I'm speeding this video up for you, whilst it'd be rather boring to watch. Then every now and then bring that pen up and put a few darker lines in here and there, just to vary the depth of tone that you can see within that fur. Don't completely fill it in with pen though. Otherwise you find that when we add the colour over the top, the colours won't stand out enough. It can look far too dark on the paper. Notice how the lines go slightly longer towards the front of the head, then shorter around the nose. Also overlap those lines as well. Now we don't want the squirrel looking like you've been there with your brush, because if you have, well, it won't be a very happy squirrel. He likes messy hairstyles. So start off with one light layer of lines first of all. Very pale, very light. as I mentioned, using the side of the pen. Once you've done the first light layer, then go over the top again with those darker lines that you can see. There aren't that many, are there? Obviously around the nose there are, but not many. Now when you start working on the nose, use tiny stipple marks, so tiny little dots like this lot. You can barely see them, I know. So working your way around the nose, that's all I'm doing. As with the fur, go on with the lightest layer first. Just put some detail on the paper really, some texture within that nose. And then you need to look carefully at that photograph, be it the colour version or if you've got the black and white version as well. I try to remember to provide that for you, okay? It's all on my Patreon channel, including the outline drawing of course. Then darken a little bit, don't go too dark though, just the lower part of the nose. This will gradually create a bit of a curved feel to that nose. We have got a bit of a line going down the middle, it's slightly curved as well. Then goes between the nostrils around there, like that. All the way down the mouth, down to the two teeth, which I've not drawn in yet. I did do though, they've disappeared on me. Then down to the mouth. So darken down the bottom as I mentioned, and lighter towards the top. Then once you've got the first layer on, you can start to darken where it needs to be darker. For example, the middle of the nose, the lower section of the nose, but not too much. Don't completely blacken it in, because it's not, is it? In fact, to be honest with you, that's just about enough on there. I think so. Okay, let's carry on with the fur, but with some very tiny lines around the nose now. Tiny and directional. Think of the centre of the nose as the clock face, because it is in a way, and the way that the hairs go away from the centre of that nose, just like the hand of a clock going around the clock face. Then work your way on the nostrils as well as you work your way through the drawing. It's getting there. It is. Also, if you go too dark with the fur, you find the whiskers won't stand out. So remember to ease off those lines where the whiskers are. Otherwise, they'll just simply blend in with the rest of the face. I think that's a foot in there, isn't it? So it does look like one. Carefully fill that in. So darker on the inside and then gets lighter as it works its way over the top. Again, I'm going to ease off those lines. There's nice and pale on there. And I'm going to leave it really light, because I want that pink to stand out when I add it over the top of the foot. Then we've got the whiskers. Now we've got probably one around there, maybe. Probably around there, I think. Put a dot there first of all and then flick up. You ready? Flick. Like that. That's what you do. So dot and flick up. Dot. Flick up that way. Change the direction slightly as you're doing this. And also the placement of the dot. Then it's all in the same place. Now I've got one whisker going right over the top of the eye. So it's sort of that direction there, isn't it? Well, the edge of the eye. So I'm going to be careful with this. What I want to do is get a natural arc in my hand like that. So when I'm looking at this, if I turn it all the way around, so you can see it, preferably, starts roughly about there, and goes all the way across the top of the head. We can't see that because it's in the dark now around there. So that's sort of curved there. So kind of ghost it first of all. In other words, don't touch the paper. Leave it. And then, aiming for that area there and beyond, ghost it. There you go. There's one very long whisker. I know, really long. I can also see a couple around here. One there. Maybe another one there. And then we've got also longer ones around there. Yeah, about that area there, isn't it? So we've got another one down there. Probably starting around here, maybe. Ghost it. And then flick. Go over it again. Flick. That's it. The same around there. And so on and so on and so on. Overlap some of these here and there as well. Put that pen down, Paul. Put it down. It's time to get the watercolour paints out. Now then, I'm going to erase all the pencil marks off my paper now. good thing about waterproof pens is that they don't erase, do they? They stay put, which is even better. I'm going to get a size 2 brush. This one's got a good point on it, as you can see. This is also by, who was it? Rosemary & Co. There you go, the XP Series 366. To mix the watercolours, I'm going to use an old brush for that, because I don't want to damage the tip of this decent brush, do I? So I'm going to start off with the eye area, and we've got a bit of a pink, haven't we, around the eyes? We'll pop that in, that one there. I want this really watery, so forget my pipette. Just drop a little bit of water in. That's probably all I need for now. And that is, as I mentioned, just around the eye. The bottom part of the eye first, around there. And also just inside the eye, just there, look. Get a little bit more. Just inside there. I'll darken that down a little bit in a minute. So I'm going to get the basic washed colour on first of all. That comes all the way to about here. Nice and pale though. Because I've not wetted the paper first, this should dry fairly swiftly, I would have thought. We'll do the same with the nose, or the nostrils more than the nose. The first basic colour on, and we'll enrich that shortly. There you go, and then obviously around here as well. Just a small amount just there. So if I thicken that slightly, try that. That just dullens it down a little bit, doesn't it? Tap some off your brush so it's not too overloaded. And then go over the top of the eye again to darken it down a little bit more. And then go over the top again to darken one more time. Just down to about here. I like to put the colours on gradually because at least then you've got more control. And the same around there. Then I want this to dry. Once it's nice and dry, we can then work on those fur colours. Oh, I'll tell you what. Looking down here, it's a bit pinky, isn't it? Just down there. Not much though. Then soften it with a clean, damp brush. So just a hint of colour, that's all we need down there. Now you can give it a quick dry with a hairdryer, or you can let it dry naturally. That is entirely up to you. Now I've got to think about the fur colour, and for that I'm going to use 3 different colours together. It's not too complex. So the first colour is going to be Raw Sienna, which is this one here. Put that one in there. You don't need a great deal of this, of course. Once again, I want this mix to be more of a watery consistency. Put that one in there. Just to warm it a little bit more. And that should do just about for the fur colour. Then pick up your size 2 again. Very lightly go over the fur, as simple as that. And where you need it to be stronger, add a second layer just within those areas. And where you need it to be lighter, for example above the eye here, all you need to do then is wash that brush out and then just very lightly soften it down. So something like this here, clean brush, give it a twiddle, turn in circles, soften that colour back, so it's lighter towards the top. I'll need more than one layer of this colour on, just a first light wash to begin with, and then we can add those richer tones over the top. And that's just by using the same mix again, simple as that. Even though it's the same colour, the same watery consistency, every layer of paint that we add will get richer and richer and richer. So we'll work our way around the face. Look at where it's light as well, especially around the muzzle. Because those hairs are really white, aren't they? So just put a few little marks here and there, using this colour, allowing those white areas to show through. I want those paler areas to remain pale. The good thing about putting the wash colours over the top of the pen work is that you've already done the detail work underneath, so you don't really have to think too much about detail. Every now and again I might put some extra details in using the brush, but not very many at all. I don't want to spoil the work I've already done. Once again nice and watery, just paint in those teeth. You can just about make them out around there. That's it, done. Then paint in those feet. Just leaving a few little lighter areas here and there where you can see the claws. And there's one around, one around there-ish. And also it's lighter towards the right hand side of that area there. And there's another claw around there. That's it. And that's that colour on. Okay, while the head is drying, let's work on the woodwork. Now, I'm going to use this colour first of all. I could help gel with the squirrel as well. But I'm also going to make up another colour to go over the top of this in places. So first of all, put this on. Water that down a little bit more than that. It's a bit too thick. Don't put it everywhere though. So there's more so on the inside edge, as you can see here. Then just scatter it, leaving plenty of gaps in between, following the curves as it works its way around. Then into that dark area, that really dark area down there. And work your way around the hole, doing the same thing of course. But remember to leave those gaps in between and don't overload that brush. There you go, you've been told now. We can lightly soften this down afterwards if we need to. All we're after here, just a little bit of colour on that bark. Okay, clean damp brush, and very lightly just soften it down. Just a touch, you don't have to go too hard on it. Just allowing plenty of those lighter areas to show through. Something like that will do. Then one more colour, and this time to a milky consistency rather than watery. And we use that just to go over certain areas, especially lower down, because you're really dark there. And put them in between the gaps as well. What I'm trying to think of while I'm doing this. So it's darker areas and gaps are drawn in. Can also hold quite a bit of colour, just in places like this. So add some of this colour within those gaps, and just beyond them as well. But once again, leaving plenty of those lighter areas in between. Don't completely fill it all in. Just an extra colour on the paper. The good thing about wood as well is that you can paint it whatever colour you want to paint it, as long as it looks natural. So I know there's quite a variety of different bark textures out there, and colours as well. So if you're not sure, have a look on the old Tinternet and see what you can find on there. And then soften around the edge of the hole using clean water to begin with, and drop in just a touch of colour over the top, allowing it to blend to the white of the paper. Now then, the last thing I want to do other than sign it is use our white pen. This is one by Uniball Signo, the broad one. Just add a few little extra details around the face. All this is still wet, so I need that to dry off anyway. You can barely see this on the paper. When you look at that reference photograph, you can see that it's lighter just around this area of the nostril. So you can lighten that down just by using a little bit of white gel pen. Simple as that. And also, we've got some white whiskers. Just going into the background like that. If they're too wide, there's a little bit wide on this nib. We can thin them down with some paint, or with our black pen, of course. We've got a few odd ones just going over the top of the head as well. Now remember, I mentioned this one here. That can be that one there. And another one going right over the top like that. Then all it needs to do then, once these are on, is thin them down a little bit with my pen. And then we'll have ourselves a completed painting. I know. Using my pen, I can just thin them back a little bit if it's too much. And the good thing about a white gel pen as well, especially if it's a permanent ink, so you can go over the top of these lines with some watercolour paint as well. And the other benefit is that this white pen dries really quickly. Now this is just about dry and all I need to do is sign it. Now if you fancy having a go at another pen and wash painting, take a look to the link on the top right hand corner of the screen. I'll see you there.